They were once aquarium pets, harmless, slow-moving bottom feeders that kept fish tanks clean. But when they escaped into the wild, everything changed. Today, these same fish are overrunning rivers, lakes, and canals across North America. They're called armored catfish, or more ominously, devilfish. And they're quietly waging one of the most bizarre invasions in modern ecology.
A seemingly small and harmless fish, once confined to aquariums, is now invading thousands of miles of North American rivers.
The story starts decades ago in South America, where armored catfish, also known as plecos or suckermouth catfish, evolved to survive in harsh tropical rivers. They're built like tanks, covered in bony plates instead of scales, with powerful sucker mouths that cling to rocks and scrape off algae. When aquarium owners in the US began importing them in the 1960s and 70s, they were marketed as perfect, cleaner fish. Drop one in your tank, and it would eat the algae for you. But what pet stores didn't mention was how fast they grow, and how impossible they are to kill. A full-grown armored catfish can reach nearly 2 feet long. They outgrow home aquariums quickly, and when owners realized they couldn't care for them, many simply dumped them into nearby ponds and canals. That one act, repeated thousands of times, became the spark for a full-scale invasion. From Florida to Texas, from Mexico to even as far north as Illinois, armored catfish have now spread across much of the continent's warm waterways. These fish are survivors in every sense. Their armor makes them almost bulletproof to predators. Alligators, bass, and birds struggle to eat them. They can live out of water for over 24 hours by breathing air through modified stomachs, allowing them to wriggle from one body of water to another after floods or rain. And when it comes to reproduction, they're relentless. A single female can lay hundreds of eggs multiple times a year, and the males fiercely guard the nests. Within months, an abandoned canal can turn into a writhing colony of armored invaders. At first, scientists didn't think much of them. They weren't poisonous, didn't bite, and seemed harmless. But soon, the damage became impossible to ignore. In Texas, their burrowing behavior began collapsing riverbanks and irrigation systems. Each fish digs deep holes to nest, loosening soil and causing erosion. In Florida, the problem is even worse. They've invaded delicate spring ecosystems, where their constant scraping stirs up sediment and blocks sunlight from reaching aquatic plants. That one small disruption throws entire food chains off balance. Native fish struggle to feed and breed. Algae blooms take over. Water clarity drops. The nickname devilfish didn't come from scientists. It came from locals who started watching these armored intruders take over their fishing spots. Anglers who once pulled up bass or bluegill began catching only catfish. The fish's tough armor destroys nets and tangles fishing lines. In Mexico, they've devastated traditional fisheries in the Grijalva and Usumacinta rivers, where local fishermen say they can't make a living anymore because the devilfish have eaten or displaced everything else. One fisherman famously said, "We can't even use them for food. They're too hard to clean." But even that's changing. As their population exploded, some communities began turning the problem into opportunity. In parts of Mexico, people now catch armored catfish for meat, drying or smoking them like tilapia. Environmental groups are even experimenting with using their meat for pet food and fertilizer. Still, it's a small dent in an enormous problem. The fish reproduce far faster than humans can remove them. What makes the invasion especially troubling is how adaptable the species has proven to be. They can survive in polluted water where most fish would die, enduring low oxygen levels and extreme temperatures. During droughts, they bury themselves in mud and wait for rain. During floods, they ride the current into new territory. Scientists have found them thriving in both freshwater and brackish environments, which means they can move from rivers to coastal zones with ease. Efforts to stop them have failed again and again. Trapping doesn't work because they're too widespread. Poisoning the water risks killing native species. Electrofishing, a method that stuns fish for collection, barely slows them down. Some wildlife agencies have tried bounties, offering payments for every armored catfish caught, but few people want to deal with the effort it takes to clean and transport them. One biologist in Florida described them as nearly indestructible. Their impact isn't just ecological, it's economic too. In Texas, the cost of repairing eroded canal systems has reached millions of dollars. In Florida, they've damaged levees, ponds, and even boat ramps. Anglers complain that they ruin bass tournaments and outcompete game fish for food. And in Mexico, the loss of native species has hit rural fishermen hard, forcing many to abandon traditional livelihoods. There's also a human safety issue. In shallow waters, their sharp fins and bony plates can injure swimmers or waders. In one case, a man in Brazil was impaled through the foot by a devilfish spine, a reminder of how armored and aggressive these creatures can be when cornered. Some reports even suggest that during floods, they attach themselves to livestock or attempt to burrow into muddy embankments, further destabilizing farmland. But perhaps the strangest part of the story is how this invasion started with good intentions. People wanted cleaner aquariums, not ecological collapse. The armored catfish's success is a reflection of human carelessness, a species engineered by evolution for survival, released into an environment with known natural enemies. In South America, jaguars and giant river otters help keep their numbers in check. In the US, there's nothing to stop them. Now, the fight has shifted from eradication to containment. Researchers are experimenting with ways to disrupt their breeding cycle, such as sonic repellents or specialized traps that mimic nesting caves. Others are trying to develop biological controls, though the risk of introducing yet another foreign species is high. A few have even suggested genetic modification, using sterilization techniques to reduce reproduction. But all these solutions are expensive and experimental. Meanwhile, the devilfish keep multiplying. Fishermen have started adapting in creative ways. Some use harpoons or bows to target them in shallow water. Others have found markets for their meat overseas. In a strange twist, a handful of chefs have begun promoting invasive fish cuisine, serving armored catfish tacos and burgers as eco-friendly alternatives. The logic is simple. If you can't beat them, eat them. But for the scientists studying the invasion, it's a grim warning. The armored catfish isn't just another pest. It's a preview of what happens when global trade and ecological ignorance collide. One species, introduced by accident, can ripple through entire ecosystems, economies, and cultures. It's a lesson that stretches beyond fish tanks and rivers, a reminder of how fragile the balance of nature truly is. Today, if you walk along the banks of Florida's waterways or the muddy edges of Texas canals, you'll see them. Hundreds of dark, armored shapes gliding through the shallows, scraping, digging, multiplying. They move like shadows, slow but unstoppable, armored survivors in a world that wasn't ready for them. Locals call them devilfish for a reason. They don't roar, they don't chase, they just take. And once they arrive, they never leave.